and welcome back to another episode of the Saints FC podcast, hosted on the Ugly Insides YouTube channel, and this week is episode 17. John and Tom are back to discuss the latest happenings at St Mary's with a draw against Newcastle United and a win against West Brom, courtesy of a Sofiane Boufal wonder goal. Virgil Van Dijk, Sofiane Boufal and Fraser, Forster all on the agenda this week for a variety of reasons, from the sublime to the downright ridiculous, and we discuss why it might be more likely that Romeu will be dropped than some of the Saints' underperforming stars, and whether Pellegrino has found out what's stuttering Southampton. We also preview the trip to Brighton at the weekend and discuss some of the players and the managers who have left Southampton over the past few seasons, but we are finding life a little bit more difficult than expected. So without further ado, over to John and Tom for this week's episode.
Is onside. 1-0. Here's Sims. It's a good search this from Southampton. They could finish the job here. It's Shane Long, and he has done it. Just a minute to play. Plus stoppage time. Here's Letizia! Oh, better to say farewell than one of the finest players ever to wear the red and white.
Right, hello and welcome to the Saints FC podcast. It's John Bailey here, and sat alongside me once again is the illustrious Mr. Tom Parker. Hello, Tom.
Hello, John, and hello, listeners.
So, as usual, if you want to get in contact with the Saints FC podcast, please do. You can send us a tweet, Saints FC podcast, or send us an email at saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com. I would also like to thank one of our listeners for writing a rather charming review, and that came from a Mr. Maurizio Pochettino. He says, this podcast is the Maurizio Pochettino of the Southampton FC podcast. It's brought together a collective of star names for a great output. Great listen.
It's lovely thing.
Yeah, I mean, lovely for Maurizio to get involved. Funny how he references himself in his own review there. Anyway, so yeah, thank you very much, Maurizio. Interesting that you're still interested in Southampton. I thought the way you left us was perhaps rather a little bit callous when you moved on to Tottenham. But hey, we think we might talk about managers that have left us for bigger and better things elsewhere later on in this show. But first of all, Tom, I want to pick up where we left off last time we chatted. And that was before the match against Newcastle. So Southampton at home to Newcastle. What did you think?
I predicted a win because I always am the most optimistic person in the world. It was better. We scored 2 goals, 1 from open play. But all the same weaknesses were there, weren't they, in terms of the indecisiveness. And there was one moment, I think there was 2 moments in the first 3 minutes where we had to get a chance to get a ball in the 6-yard box, and we didn't. And you just knew then it was going to be one of those days. And in the end, we were kind of hanging on for dear life at home to Newcastle. It was a frustrating game to watch.
It was. I mean, I happened to be on holiday at the time, so I was watching it in the sunny town of Tavira in the Algarve in Portugal. It was an Irish pub. There were more Newcastle fans in it than there were Saints fans. And I think the one thing that we all agreed on was that the referee's performance was quite poor. I thought Newcastle could have had a player sent off. We thought the penalty was a little bit weak. I think Shane Long was being quite clever there, though. I think kind of forced the referee into giving a decision. But besides that, I think the Newcastle fans looking at me, my dad and my father-in-law watching the game, getting really, really frustrated. I don't think they could understand why, but tell us what was wrong. What were all the problems that I was getting so annoyed about?
Well, I think first thing, we'll come to some of the things they've actually done better, I think, in the last game against West Brom, but it was the indecisiveness, it was the fear of shooting, and also when we did shoot, we didn't really put the goalkeeper under pressure, and I even think the goal we scored from open play is a weird goal. It's sort of, you felt like almost like the referee was going to blow up and pull it back for something, because it all sort of happened in slow motion. Yeah, very frustrating. Players not taking chances, and I think we saw again players that are undroppable. This is something we've spoken about a number of times this season. Redmond, Haddock, and Forster. You saw really anonymous performances, and I kind of wish Forster had been anonymous, but he definitely wasn't. And I think it just kind of summed up almost everything that was a bit rubbish about the season so far.
Yeah, so, I mean, let's start with Fraser Forster then. He was beaten from long range again. Again, a shot that went quite low. And I've heard a theory that, when Fraser Forster was out injured, he did quite a lot of strength training. So he tried to almost bulk up a little bit, make himself a bit stronger. And the theory is that since he's done that, he's become slower. His reactions are not so good. And I kind of get that, but he seems to be very, very good from close range. When it comes to kind of making himself big on the goal line, in a scramble, he tends to be quite good. But these long-range shots, every time it seems that someone has a long-range shot against him that is like half decent in terms of speed and direction, then it goes in.
I have a theory, and it's not this one. I think he's too big. And you look at a lot of modern goalkeepers; they are wiry, like David De Gea and the really good goal Courtois. They're very tall, but they're not big. Forster combines; it's almost like a rugby centre. And I think the goal against Newcastle, you saw a player that he knows what he has to do. He knows he has to spring back up on his feet and get up, but he's almost too big. He's 6'8". What is he going to weigh? Like 14, 15 stone? And I just wonder if he is too big and he's bulked up too much. I think your theory is a good one.
Yeah, and then so he was getting a lot of stick from the Saints fans on Twitter. I mean, that's not surprising. The Saints fans on Twitter, we do tend to give people stick, perhaps a lot more regularly than you would than always is deserved. But we then had the under-23s game the following day, and our reserve goalkeeper picked out an absolute stinker and showed that off, and that was all on video and all over Twitter. So, perhaps just regardless of the fact that he's a bit slow, a bit bigger, not quite as quick off his feet again, he's still not going to be dropped because we haven't got enough in reserve.
Yeah, I've not seen the goals. I think it was we conceded 4, did we, in the reserves in a week? I think that you have to trust the manager, don't you, on... I mean, this makes no sense what I'm about to say. I apologise so much. You trust the manager on the goalkeeper because they know McCarthy and they must see McCarthy and they must think he's not up to it. But with the other players that we spoke about, the wingers, we do seem to have ready-made replacements there, and that's why it drives everyone mad. But yeah, Forster for the second goal wasn't pretty. Yeah,
again, well, I mean, let's move on from Forster. I think we've worked on him enough. Two of the other players, the wingers that you mentioned, Redmond, Tadic, not being dropped. Perhaps if only we had someone who kind of had like a little bit of magic on the bench that we could turn to. Anyway, that clearly wasn't available for the game against Newcastle. I suppose one of the really positives about Newcastle was Manolo Gabbiadini doing it again. His first goal, he really made out of absolutely nothing. He wasn't really going anywhere, wasn't going in the right direction, yet he still somehow managed to kind of turn around and pick up a goal. I mean, what did you make of that goal?
I think it was a weird goal. I think it did feel to me a bit like a training ground goal. But I wonder if you saw that, and we'll come on to Boufal. You're almost seeing some of these players, they're like, I'm not going to pass. Like, if I feel I can do this, I'm not going to pass. Because if I pass, someone's just going to pass it, and then it'll go to Tadic and nothing will happen. And I wonder if sometimes they need to take a punt, they need to take a shot. And I think it was a really, really good goal. And it was, he needs goals. He's a very streaky player. We know that. Everyone knows that about him. But fingers crossed he can go on a bit of a run now.
Yeah. So I mean, let's get to the crux of the problem here then. You basically think the players don't trust each other and they don't want to pass to each other and they don't necessarily trust the system will generate the chances.
No, I think they want to pass to each other. I think the fact they want to pass to each other is the problem. I think they want to pass to each other because no one wants to take the responsibility of shooting. So in the end, it's just easier for everyone to pass to everyone and things will eventually fizzle out. I think they want to pass to each other because they lack the courage to have a pop. And I think when players do have a pop, as we saw at the weekend, as you saw Gabbiadini, they can score goals.
Okay, so all right, we'll pick up on that a bit later. Some of the problems that I had with the game against Newcastle were I thought the play was too casual. I thought we lacked purpose at times. We didn't look like we kind of had that fight or spirit. I couldn't really decide whether it was a tactical issue or whether it was a motivational issue.
I said at the time, I tweeted this. I don't like to criticise Saints, but Saints play when it's 0-0 or Saints are losing. They play with the air of a team that are winning 2-0. They play with this like very, lackadaisical, very calm. Just pass it around. I would love to know the amount of, if you kind of split the pitch into fifths, the amount of balls played by Southampton players. If you imagine in the sort of second and third fifths of the pitch, like in and around the halfway line to our centre backs, we just seem to pass it languidly around those guys. And I don't know whether it's they must be playing to the system they've been told to play to.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, Pellegrino doesn't necessarily look particularly pleased with what's going on the pitch, when you see him at the sidelines. But then again, after the games, he's not coming out and saying, well, actually, I set up the team to play a certain way and they didn't deliver. He's not criticising his players publicly. I mean, I don't know what goes on the training ground, whether they are doing what he's telling them to do. And I suppose that's kind of where you don't really know whether it's the tactics or the motivation. He doesn't look clueless, Pellegrino, but the players kind of do at times. Yeah,
I think we've got a few headless chickens, haven't we? And I think I keep coming back to them. I think they are so prominent because when they're good, they're so important to the way we play. But Tadic and Redmond, I think, are the, if you look at the players where we seem to run out of steam, it's when the ball goes to them. And I think they both need a bit of time away from the team.
Okay, and then the other player who frustrated me against Newcastle, and I think we disagree on this, is Virgil van Dijk was annoying me. I kind of felt like his clearance was responsible for one of the goals. I thought it was a bit lackadaisical, a bit kind of like a League One player. It was either, if you're going to do a clearance, if it's real danger, you either smash it out and get it totally out of the danger zone, or, you're a really classy defender and you're playing it out. And he did neither. He just kind of like pathetically pumped it back out to the Newcastle attack. But you thought he had a better game than perhaps I did. I thought he kind of occasionally got caught out of position, looked a bit disinterested.
I agree on that. I think his body language in that game was pretty awful. I think he does look disinterested, and I think he doesn't look as on the pace as he should be. I think he gets away with it because he's so good. And because he's so comfortable on the ball, so tall, so strong, so fast, I think he kind of gets away with it. But I agree, his body language in that game did kind of stink, and the clearance, which wasn't anything at all, which led to the goal, was very frustrating because you just expect better from his type of player.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of debate amongst Saints fans afterwards about, what's our best centre-back pairing? Should Hope be back in the team? Wasn't this all totally unfair on Stevens? And then a lot of people were just saying, well, the fact is that we just have to accept that Virgil van Dijk is our best defender, and we just need to give him the time and get him established back in the side again. Anyway, I think we should probably move on from the Saints versus Newcastle 2-2 game, because there's a much better topic to talk about, and that's Saints versus West Brom. So, Tom, normally you make an annual trip down to St Mary's for this game. So, did you do that on was it Saturday? It was Saturday.
Saturday evening, I went to my local pub, which was the Millwall pub, which is lovely, and watched the game. No, I didn't. I had a time off on this one, and it, for 84 minutes. By God, I was glad I wasn't there. It was a pretty turgid game. I've heard a lot of people say it was a terrible, awful game of football. I actually disagree with that. I don't think it was as awful as people are making out. One thing I would say, Saints at least looked like they wanted it. They really went for it. They shot. They really fashioned openings. They crossed the ball when they had the chance. Helped by a West Brom team who clearly weren't interested. But yeah, I felt the attitude was better. How did you feel watching it? I think you were watching it on your phone.
Yeah, I was on a stag do this weekend, and none of the rest of the stag do were Southampton fans, which is a shame. But we were out in the pub, as perhaps unsurprisingly, on a stag do on a Saturday afternoon, and I watched it on my phone in the pub. So we're talking about a pretty small screen here. But first half, I actually thought, it looks like Saints are really trying. They're showing that purpose that they looked like they were lacking in the game against Newcastle. They kind of looked like a team that had been given a bit of a bollocking by the manager, and he kind of sent them out a bit more fired up and said, look, you really have to show the fans that you do care. You do want to go out there and win it. We had some good chances. I mean, Romeu, I think we should have done much better with his chance in the first half.
Again, had chances. They looked better. They did. They looked hungrier. They looked like they wanted to win a game. And I think maybe they realised that if they hadn't won that, they are heading into more difficult fixtures. It would have been one win at home. I think people would have got on their back. And I think people would have got on Pellegrino's back. And I think in the end, they just about got it right.
Yeah, so the first half was a little bit more positive. We've talked about the West Brom kind of attitude, the way they approach the game. Coming to St Mary's, where basically Southampton never score, and then setting up as defensively as they did, you pretty much would have bet your house on this being 0-0. But then in the 81st minute, Pellegrino makes that substitution where he brings on Moroccan... I want to call him a wonder kid. He's clearly incredibly talented, but Sofiane Boufal came onto the pitch. Tom, do you want to have a go at trying to describe this goal in words?
You felt like it was going to be pulled back. Like when he scored, you thought that the reason why he had made it look so easy is because the referee had blown up for like an offside or something like that. It was amazing. It was so quick, and it was proper Roy the Rover stuff. It was amazing. I can't remember a better goal we scored any Saints player scored in a long time. The crowning moment isn't actually the goal. It's the bit where I think Nyong and the other, I think the right back, sort of smash into each other like a comedy style. Brilliant to watch. Celebration was a bit off for me, but I guess he's very frustrated. He's looked there and Tadic and Redmond on it haven't exactly been pulling up trees and being well beaters, and he probably thinks he deserves to be on that pitch. And going back to the Newcastle game, he came on. He did all the things that people criticise him for not doing in terms of tracking back, in terms of tackling. He looks like he's bulked up in the gym. He looks like he knows he can't just be a show pony. And I thought the goal was wonderful to watch.
I mean, it was absolutely incredible, really. And you're right about him being a bit more involved. He picked it up pretty much just outside our area. Almost immediately kind of went into a challenge, but managed to kind of turn around, take the ball with him, and then started sprinting off up the pitch, which is where we then get that beautiful comedy moment that you talked about, where the pursuing West Brom defender clashes into the one coming up. But then everything that he did after that as well was great. The way he approached the goal, he took it towards a defender, he jinked around, and then he curved it beautifully into the right-hand corner. And there's a really fantastic shot where it's just behind him, and you can see the ball swing out and swing in. Beautifully placed. It was outrageous. The whole thing really was rather wonderful. And I've heard people making comparisons to a certain Diego Maradona goal against England in the World Cup. Was it that good, Tom?
No, when you're young, when you're a kid, you think the best goal is the best goal because it's the best goal. Now that I'm old and wise, great goals matter because they're scored in important games. So Sofiane Boufal's goal against, in a no-mark game in the Premier League is still a great goal. But great goals, that's got to be Zidane against Bayer Leverkusen, that ridiculous volley. It's got to be Maradona in a World Cup quarter-final against England.
It's got to be Matt Letizia on the last game of the day.
Doing it when it matters. So yeah, for me, I love the goal. I can't give it one of the world's greatest. Sorry, Sofiane.
Do you think he's going to win Saints goal of the season this year?
I bloody hope not, because if he doesn't, that means someone else has done something better. But
it would be great if we see a couple more goals that can have a running. I mean, considering how poor the goal of the month competitions have been this season so far.
Us taking shots in the back garden that we get a smiley face on Twitter and that's it. Yeah, it's terrible. Goals, but yeah.
Right, so let's go for the next thing. So, obviously, Sofiane Boufal came on as a substitution in the 81st minute and he provided that individual piece of brilliance that he just basically made a goal out of nothing. And if it wasn't for that individual bit of brilliance, we probably wouldn't have won the game. But there's another substitution which Pellegrino has made in the last 2 games, which I want to talk about. And I wonder if this is perhaps a clue to some of Saints' problems and also perhaps a solution to some of Saints' problems. Yet, I think it's going to be quite an unpopular opinion. Are you ready for this, Tom?
Hit me with this.
So, Oriol Romeu, player of the season, I think, 2 years running for the fans. An undroppable player, has basically been substituted off late on in the last 2 matches. So against Newcastle and against West Brom. And both times he's come off, I thought Saints have looked better. Now, this isn't supposed to be a slight on Oriol Romeu because I think he's a wonderful, wonderful player. I think he does his job really, really well. But do Saints need Lemina and Romeu in the same team, especially when we're playing against teams like West Bromwich Albion, Newcastle United at home?
One of the criticisms we had after the Watford game, I remember, was that we set up very defensively, and we were saying, well, why on earth have we set up like that against Watford, a team we should be looking to beat at home? There are some people who think that Romeu is carrying an injury of some sort. I still think Romeu is great. And I still think that, well, I'd like to see Boufal given a run in the team. And I think if you have a player like Boufal, you probably do, you need to maybe overcompensate for that. He is more of a luxury player. And I think that there were positive substitutions on Saturday. I think the substitution, bringing on Davis for, and enabling us to put a proper winger on where Davis has been playing. I don't know about Romeu. He is still a tank. I think he complements Lemina very well. In many ways, he has become like a service player to Lemina. So it'll be really interesting to see, because 2 of them are unstoppable together. But do we lose something up front by being so defensive? I think we do.
Yeah, I think we do as well. And I think perhaps that might be the key to the lack of attacking purpose, is that you have Romeu generally sits in front of the defence, protects the defence. Okay, he got into the box against West Brom on Saturday, but you could see that he's not quick enough. He hasn't got the finishing ability in the same kind of like way as perhaps a Stephen Davis or a Redmond or a Tadic might, although, let's perhaps forget about this season in terms of those examples. And it's kind of upsetting to say it, because I think Romeu has been so good for us. But I do wonder if we don't need to have Romeu and Lemina in the same team, especially when we're playing against sides that are not in the top 6. So I can definitely see the advantage of having both of them in the team when you're playing against Man United, when you're playing against Liverpool, when you're playing against Chelsea or Arsenal, teams that are going to attack you. I think it'd be great to have both of them in.
Top 6, but you mentioned Liverpool. Obviously a mistake there.
I was thinking of the top 6 finishing positions last season.
Oh, right, that makes more sense. Sorry, as you were then, sorry.
Yeah, although I think I will find it quite hilarious that if they don't finish in the top 6 this season, and perhaps we can talk about some more Schadenfreude later on in the podcast. So, if you're a manager, what do you do when you've got players that are kind of undroppable that you kind of think you might need to drop to make the team work better?
We're talking about Romeu, I'm guessing, or yeah. I think he's right still play Romeu. I would like to see more of Davis recycling the ball faster. I don't know. I almost think he probably wishes he could just play 12 players, because I don't think you can drop Romeu. You definitely can't drop Lemina. And we do seem wedded to this idea of playing with 2 wingers come hell or high water. So, yeah, we can't play what we did on Saturday, which is a 4-2-4 with 1 defensive midfielder. We'll get torn to shreds. So you look at what Liverpool are trying to do now. I mean, we'll come to Lovren, but one of the reasons Liverpool look so bad at the back is because they've got no protection from the midfield. And I think that football is, unfortunately, now a game of, you either get like your Sam Allardyce type managers or your Guardiolas. There's not very maverick managers, and I think people play the percentages, and I think Romeu gives you percentages, I imagine. Well, I mean, you're a big fan of Romeu, but do you think he should be dropped?
I kind of think that perhaps... I think we just need to look at the system, and we need to work out what it is that will give us more attacking purpose in those games. And I think the last 2 games where Romeu, after he's come off, in both games I thought we'd looked a little bit better afterwards. I thought we had more shape, more speed, more energy. but bloody hell, I wouldn't want to be the guy that goes and tells the player who's been your best player for years and hasn't actually put a foot wrong even this season.
And handled himself very, very well in all public. He never moans, never kicks up a fuss. Handles himself with it seems like he'd be a real pro. But Sunday, we'll come to Sunday's game, but Sunday's a great example. Do you perceivably a weaker team against Brighton, do you drop Romeu for that? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I guess probably what Pellegrino is going to do is probably use that 4-2-4 approach again, which is a way how we can get enough attackers on the pitch and include both those two players. I guess probably the great managers of the world will drop the players, even if they're superstars or the best players individually, when it suits the system, if they trust the system. So anyway, I think that's one to watch. I don't know what Pellegrino's going to do. I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but it has occurred to me that perhaps we don't need Romeu and Lamina in the same team at the same time.
I think beyond that, if we do, what is that? We've got players like James Ward-Prowse, Højbjerg can't even get anywhere near the team. What's going to happen? These Classy went, and we thought, well, Classy's going because Højbjerg and James Ward-Prowse, but turns out that none of these players are getting anywhere near that first team. So it's going to be an interesting few months, I think, for Saints.
Yeah, it is. Pellegrino is already clearly developing his favourites. Redmond, Tadic, Long, Gabbiadini all seem to be up there, along with Romeu and Lamina. But Davis didn't start, did he, on Saturday? And that's probably something that would have been pretty unthinkable for a fair old while. So he's clearly not afraid of making difficult decisions. I hope he's starting to get us clicking. I hope the players are starting to play for him, and let's see. I'd be feeling not overly confident about going to Brighton and getting a win. They've obviously played very well at the weekend as well and got a victory. Admittedly against West Ham, who are poor. But what do you think we're going to do against Brighton? I
always say we'll win. So why change the habit of a lifetime? I think we can win. I don't think West Ham tells you anything about a Brighton team. Glenn Murray, you would think that with Van Dijk and Yoshida also playing very, very well at the moment, by the way, you'd think that we've got enough to keep Glenn Murray quiet. And going forward, I think we play that 4-2-4. If we play Boufal, which I think we should, we can trouble them. I think you could see us winning that 1 or 2-0.
Yeah, what was the last time we played Brighton away? Was it when Jose Font got that great goal? Oh no, because they came up that same season, didn't they? So we would have played them in the Championship as well.
They kind of... Yeah, I can't remember what the result was. I have to dig that out. But the one that everyone remembers is Jose's 96th minute looping header.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that we want to recreate at the Amex Stadium in Brighton next Sunday. That's the third Saints game on the television in a row. We must have set the world alight in the early games of the Premier League this season to be such a hot pick for the TV studios.
People want goals, and Saints get goals. Hang on, no, that's not right at all. Sorry.
No. Right. Let's have a little think about some of our ex-players, managers, because there's been some pretty big news for them. There's some people that have left the club and done pretty well. If we talk about Pochettino, who obviously left us that lovely review, he left for Tottenham Hotspur. He's done really well at Tottenham. They had a fantastic victory against Liverpool. They've drawn to Real Madrid. He's managed to do what he did at Saints and do it even better at Tottenham, hasn't he?
Yeah. All helped by the fact that they have... we've spoken so much here about Southampton having a lack of a finisher or a deadly finisher. Helped by the fact that Harry Kane kind of come out of nowhere. He was a bit of a laughing stock. And it's just deadly. He's absolutely deadly. Dele Alli... they've probably got two of the best 5 players in Europe right now, alongside Ronaldo, Messi, and maybe Neymar.
And you're saying Harry Kane and Dele Alli?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're brilliant. If you look, they're consistently now. I think what we're looking at now, 3 seasons in a row for Harry Kane. Yeah, he's clearly not a one-shot wonder. He's just amazingly consistent, and I think Ali is up there. He looks like a horrible little rat of a bloke, and he dives and all that. He does all that horrible stuff, but you got to give it to him. And they score a lot of goals, and even like Eriksen, really underrated. Vertonghen, Abdul. We know how good those players, Wanyama. There's a lot of RX guys there. It says a lot.
And so perhaps inspired by Pochettino, Koeman decided to move on from Southampton at the end of not last season but the season before. He left a club that finished 6th in the table, doing pretty well, got proper European qualification, signed up their superstar Dutch defender for a whole other season, and he left for an Everton side that were kind of languishing towards the kind of lower end of the middle table. Well, what do you think was going through Koeman's mind when he left Saints?
What's that ABBA song? Money, money, money? No, I don't know. I think I was saying this on Saturday. One of the things he probably left Saints is because we sold Mane and we brought in players like Redmond, and that would drive you absolutely insane. He obviously thought he would build something there, and he'd be given the money to build something. But with the great money comes a great responsibility, and if you don't deliver very, very quickly with that money, all of a sudden you're out on your ear. And this afternoon, that's what's happened.
Yeah, Koeman sold Romelu Lukaku. He was a great finisher, and at Saints we know what it's like to go from having someone who's a great striker and then losing them. I can think of kind of like Lambert and Pele. Lukaku was a level above that in terms of his finishing ability and his strength and power. But Koeman had £140 million to spend on replacing Lukaku, and he replaced them with a whole bunch of attacking midfielders, and it hasn't worked out well at all, has it?
They seem to have signed a lot of bang average players. I mean, they've signed some great players in like Sigurdsson. Everyone would love Sigurdsson at their club, but they even Ashley Williams doesn't seem to be really doing it. He's coming to the sort of twilight of his career. They seem to have spent a lot of money on players that are kind of just a bit average. Even like Rooney is, no doubt a great player, but wage bill alone is meant to be £7.5 million a year. So it's a lot of money they've spent. Clearly, they wanted instant results. They're not getting them. They look terrible, and they look lost. And I think that the fight that was against the Lyon fight, I think told you a lot more. Really, I think people focus on the fan with the kid that was punching people, but that was the sign of a club that was in crisis. And I'm surprised he didn't go after that. But it's pretty embarrassing on Sunday.
Yeah. Did you enjoy Koeman getting sacked this afternoon, Tom? Is there a little bit of you that felt a bit like...
Yeah, I guess you do a little bit. You don't mind when players and managers go to like a much bigger club. Well, let me go the right. Everton are a bigger club than Southampton. They get bigger crowds. They have bigger history. Fair enough. They have more money. But you get the feeling he could have kind of built something at Southampton. He could have built like a 5 or 6 year legacy.
He could have built a bigger club.
Yeah, he could have built that bigger club. He could have, worked harder to get the ground up, build the attendance at the ground. And you don't want to see anyone lose their job, but hey, man, it's not like, he's on a 0 hours contract. He's going to get, 2.5 years of £6 million worth of salary. They'll pay him. It's not bad. And football being football, he'll have another job within 3 months. And we all know that.
Yeah. And then, so I've got another question to ask you here. Let's say, we get to the end of the season and Saints finish where they are now in the table, i.e., 10th, slap bang in the middle. Performances haven't really changed much over the season, not had anything of a league, anything of a cup run. Would you take Koeman back?
No. I think you'd look stupid, wouldn't you? It's like it'd be like taking your wife or your girlfriend back after she's run off with another man. You'd be a bit emasculated. So for me... Yeah, never go back, and we just have to move on. But I don't feel hugely sorry for him. I think his interviews, he's been very standoffish. It's weird. I don't know how he's managed to get it so wrong, but that's football, isn't it?
Do you actually think he's not as good a manager as he looked at Southampton? Did he just jump on the Southampton train when it was full steam ahead? With the work that Pochettino had done, we brought in some good players. I mean, we sold some really great players. The summer he came in, we lost Lambert, we lost Lallana. Obviously, Schneiderlin stayed for another season. But who else did we lose in that summer?
I can't remember. Obviously,
Lovren as well.
Lovren, yeah, but we obviously bought in Tadic, obviously bought in Pella, Van Dijk in that time, Mane. So the quality players came in. You do wonder whether some managers just find their level, and wonder if Koeman excelled by getting... I mean, I think he did excel by getting Southampton into 6th place. It was an amazing achievement. But taking Everton to 4th, which I think is where they want to be, that's a hell of a job. And I think it's beyond him, and to be honest, it's probably beyond most managers.
It is a challenge, and I remember a lot of pundits talking about this. Despite the fact that Everton spent £140 million, nobody could actually see them breaking into, let alone the top 4, but the top 6. Such as the dominance of the big 6 teams, allegedly. Although it's not necessarily looking that way this season. So I think one of the teams that I suggested in our preview season that I was hoping that Southampton could potentially get into the top 6, but it would require one of the top 6 teams to fail. I thought the most likely team to do that would be Liverpool. And they're pretty much demonstrating that. They're not looking great at the moment, are they? And one of our ex-players has come in for a bit of a shocking bit of criticism. So I know you had a bit of an opinion on this. What do you think of Klopp's treatment of Dejan Lovren?
I think it's crazy. I don't understand how. I'm not a football manager, as we all know. I don't understand psychology like all these people understand psychology, supposedly. I don't understand how publicly lambasting someone who, and I've said this before about Lovren, I think Lovren is more mentally fragile than other top class centre backs, like a John Terry or someone like that, who is just made of like granite and would never waver and never stop. I've always thought Lovren was a bit fragile. He did it for Saints a few times where he kind of seemed to lose himself a little bit. I just don't understand how Klopp thinks that in the long term this is a solution to... I can understand binning him after 31 minutes, taking him off. That's just embarrassing. But to slag him off after the game, it was almost a step too far. I mean, it's not like Lovren is one of many centre-backs that Klopp is blessed with. So who does he think he's going to... He's probably just going to have to play Klopp again this weekend. Sorry, you have to play Lovren again this weekend. So I don't understand the psychology. And if any of the listeners understand it, then please get in touch. But I've got no idea how he thinks this is going to play out.
It's quite interesting with Lovren because when he played at Saints, he did have a couple of mares. But the pressure's not on Southampton players in the same way that it is Liverpool players. And you know what happens? When Saints beat a big side, all the focus is on what the big side did wrong. And very rarely, apart from the occasions when you get like some wonderful piece of magic or an outstanding performance, very rarely do they actually focus on the positives of Saints. All the interest is on the big 6. So when Lovren made a mistake for Saints against a Man United or a Chelsea or whatever, it would never be the focus on that. It would be like, what a wonderful thing Diego Costa has done.
It's because Drogba's put him under pressure. That's why he's made a mistake. It was always like that kind of thing.
Yeah. For Liverpool, he doesn't get that same sort of forgiveness. But yeah, it is interesting to see that. And I think as we look back at all these players that have left Southampton, so, I mean, Pochettino, things have obviously gone very well for him. I think, Victor Wanyama, he's with that squad with Tottenham. He's obviously, moved on to pretty good things. Lallana, his career has, still continued. I think he had a pretty dodgy first season, but he's starting to look, like a key player. But a lot of the other players that have left Southampton...
Mane's done very well. I think Mane, has to be out there. He's done very well.
Yeah, but Mane as well. But Luke Shaw... Obviously, nothing great has come from that move. Callum Chambers, nothing great has come from that move. I think you could even start going back to kind of like Walcott and Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Jose Fonte is another. I mean, but I wonder if it's a law of averages. We've sold so many players that inevitably some of them would turn out to be duds. But football's gone mad. We've said this before. Oxlade-Chamberlain, a player that Liverpool did not need. No one knows if they really even wanted him. He was going to be on a free transfer in 9 months' time, and they paid 40 million quid for him. And they think he can be a right winger. By all accounts, he wants to become like a sweeper centre back. It kind of makes no sense whatsoever. It is absolutely bonkers. But I think you're right, you raise a point. Luke Shaw nowhere near that Man United team. Chambers not near the Arsenal team. Walcott, talk about him coming home again. I don't think that would be a good thing for Saints. We need to look forward, not back. Football is just very, very strange at the moment because it's this weird mix of loads of money and nostalgia, and that's never a good thing.
And it's weird as well because you look back on the Saints sides that we totally dismantled and sold out across the rest of the Premier League. You thought, what could we have achieved if we kept them all together? And actually, I think we probably could have achieved more if they'd all stayed together and continued progressing together, with a couple of additions. Perhaps, maybe you don't bring in a Mane if you don't sell a Lallana, who knows? But it would have been great to see them progress, and I wonder if some of those players and perhaps an ex-manager are also kind of thinking, what might have been had they stayed at Saints a bit longer.
I think the one that really springs to mind, and I take no glee in the nightmare that Lovren had. I do think he's having a very difficult personal time at the moment. I don't take any happiness in that. But I like Fonte. Fonte's the one because he was Billy Big Chips. Thought he'd get a move to Man United, didn't, and now he's just getting murdered at West Ham. So that's the kind of one where you can have a bit of Schadenfreude. I think on Fonte, that's the Schadenfreude.
Fonte's the one that you enjoy the most, is it?
I think so because it's just the arrogance. It's the pure arrogance. Because West Ham might have a big stadium, but they're not a step up on Saints. Not in a million years. Liverpool, you can argue, it's a step up on Saints. You go to West Ham, you just go there for the money. And if you just go somewhere for the money, you deserve what you get.
Everton, I think I've enjoyed Koeman not doing very well quite a lot. The real shame for him, I think, is he thought Southampton was a stepping stone to a bigger Premier League club, and I think he thought that Everton was a stepping stone to a bigger European club, perhaps beginning with a B and ending in an Barcelona.
Completely agree. Completely agree. And now that looks like it's in tatters, or if he's going to get it, he now starts again. He's going to have to do 10 years of working before he gets that job. Yeah, I completely agree.
I wonder if maybe the Dutch national side might be a way that he can perhaps rectify his reputation at this point. So, Tom, I don't know if there's anything else that you particularly want to talk about this week.
I think we've covered a lot of ground there. But what I would say is what a difference a game makes. The optimism, I think, is back. I'm always more optimistic than most, but I do think, the optimism is back. I think Boufal has lifted. I hope Boufal has lifted people and given people something to be excited about, and roll on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing if Boufal's given a starting position or if perhaps he's brought on a little bit earlier. My only worry is that having beaten pretty much all of the West Brom team in one move, that he might just not pass the ball at all and just constantly try it over and over and over again and get a little bit frustrated. But I'm feeling more confident going into the game against Brighton. I think if we start with the kind of purpose that we did against West Brom, especially away from home, especially against a team like Brighton, when they're at home, I think they'll be forced to attack us a little bit. People, the fans will want to see them being positive. And I think if Brighton approach the game in a more positive way, I think Saints can beat them. And perhaps, with Gabbiadini getting 2 goals, with Boufal getting a goal, perhaps we can start to see some confidence and see some more progressive football and some more goals.
I think if we get an early goal, we'll settle well, and I think we can win.
All right, brilliant. Well, perhaps we'll end it on that. I think we'll watch the game against Brighton, and perhaps we'll check in a couple of weeks. I've also got an interview that I've already recorded with Dean Hammond, so that's going to be coming out probably next week. So do make sure you have a little listen for that, and it'll probably come out the day after we play Brighton. So the prediction that I got Dean Hammond to do for that game will be totally pointless. But anyway, you can have a little listen to what you thought. But yeah, thank you very much for listening to us again. Once again, if you want to send us any feedback, we're on email, saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Twitter @saintsfcpodcast. And of course, we're very happy for you to leave your feedback on the iTunes store or whatever app you listen to your podcasts on. Thank you very much. And that's bye-bye from me.
It's good night from me.
Cheerio.